Hey everyone, and welcome to the show, I guess.
Sorry, you sounded funny.
So this is basically a podcast style thing that me and Steve are doing where we recommend a game each that the other should play, and at the end we decide what we think the best game for the viewer to play would be, and we talk about why it works and when it came out and shit like that.
And the key thing is that I don't know what it's a game that I know Michael hasn't played, and a game that Michael knows I haven't played.
Yes, exactly. I forgot that vital piece of information.
Extremely vital.
Okay, Steve. So what's your game you think I should play?
So this is a game that I'm sure everyone is going to agree with me that you should definitely play because it's one of the greatest games of all time.
It's going to be like an obvious one that I haven't played, right?
It is.
Okay.
This is a game called Chrono Trigger.
Yes.
Yeah, so Chrono Trigger, I'm going to give you a bit of context for why I think you should play this, alright?
Okay.
So, do you remember when the PlayStation Network became a thing and you could download PS1 classics?
Yes.
Me and you had a very similar experience with one particular game. Do you remember what game that was?
Similar. Oh, Final Fantasy V?
No, that's a funny another story for you.
Yeah.
No, Vagrant Story.
Oh, Vagrant Story. Yeah.
Do you remember? Now,
yeah,
that's a game
it's
that's
cool, but
it's a game that's kind of well known for being very good, but we kind of didn't get into it.
It had a cool setting and presentation, but the combat and just the systems in it were very, I don't know, and the environment, like being in a dungeon the whole time, I thought it would be more varied.
Yeah. I think that's emblematic of the key thing that I'm trying to say here is because like there's loads of games that are like a little bit dated. They're maybe like they're on older generation consoles or whatever, and there's like they're supposed to be great, they're supposed to be fantastic. Like Alundra is another one that I've heard is supposed to be great, but I couldn't really get into it. Same with Wild Arms is another one.
Oh yeah, I tried Wild Arms.
I tried Wild Arms, and again, it just didn't grab me. Like JRPGs, I think in particular, are kind of like it's a tricky thing that it needs to hook you, and some of them I'm sure they're good, but they just don't hook you.
It's because there's a huge time investment as well. Like if you're not getting it within the first half an hour, then you're not going to spend the next 30 hours playing it.
Exactly, but the reason I'm bringing that up now is because Chrono Trigger, like, this is something that me and you have both experienced a lot, where it was kind of like, Chrono Trigger hooked me from the very beginning. It got its claws in, and I only played this in the last, like, I think it was 5 years ago, so like, well after it came out, but it grabbed me immediately, and I was like, I need to play this to the end. I was in the middle of playing, what was I playing at the time? I think I was playing Final Fantasy 13, so it was definitely it was definitely the better of the two JRPGs
How
to play.
could you give up Final Fantasy 13?
Oh man,
such a varied experience.
I needed to see what was the end of that corridor, man. I needed to see it. But yeah, Chrono Trigger is, I mean, so many people have talked about being the best RPG of like
I've seen it in lots of lists.
It's constantly in like the top 10, top 100, top whatever, like usually like quite often at the very, very top. What's great about it is you played Final Fantasy 6, right?
Yeah, I've completed it, yeah.
That's the easiest comparison. Just so you've all heard that Michael completed Final Fantasy 6.
Did I actually? I'm not sure if I did.
But see, it's very easy to compare to Final Fantasy 6 because like there's a lot of similarities.
The 2D art style and stuff. Yeah.
But and I think a friend of ours, Colin, I was talking to him while I was playing it. I was telling him how great it was, and he was saying, "Which do you prefer, 6 or Chrono Trigger?" And the thing is, either one is, you can kind of go for either one and you'd be like, you're right if you think you're right, whatever. But I'd say Final Fantasy 6 has the better story and characters, but Chrono Trigger has like the better gameplay and kind of overall design.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so, and that's not to say that the story and characters are bad or the gameplay and design is bad in 6. It's just like the one tiny tip of the scales, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Personally though, I actually think Chrono Trigger is better than Final Fantasy 6, and that might be a controversial view in some people's eyes.
Wow,
but
fucking shots fired. Yeah.
It's the key thing about it, right, is the gameplay. The gameplay kicks ass. It's
so turn-based combat, or
yeah, it is turn-based, right? But it's one of the few it's, do you know when you're in Final Fantasy 6 or 7 or something like that, and you're walking around and it has the random battles and it goes there, or whatever.
I felt like I was playing a game for a second.
Right, yeah. But it kind of has that, but the screen doesn't change. Like, it all takes place on the same like open map thing. And it's one of the few games where I love getting into fights. They were even for an older game like that. It's just so much fun.
Why?
It's the way it works, right? So every character has these things called techs. They're like techniques.
Okay.
Right, and every one of them gets 8 techniques each. But you can combine your techniques with other characters, right?
Yeah.
So you can do 2 characters can combine techniques, or 3 characters can. So there's like 8 techniques each, and I think there's something like 60 other ones to discover, which doesn't sound as much like a huge amount, but trust me, it takes a while to figure out them all. And like, if you find one you really like, you're going to use it again and again, you know. So it's just tons of fun. Also, the enemy design is fantastic. You know, Final Fantasy VI had a lot of it used like single sprite images, but like they were big and well detailed, but they didn't move or anything. But Chrono Trigger has like sprites that actually like have multiple like parts, and the design is absolutely unreal, and they're huge. Like, you know how in Final Fantasy VI, I'm going to constantly bring it back to 6 because it's like a great
you seem
comparison.
to be shitting on Final Fantasy 6.
I know, I love 6. 6 is phenomenal. Put it this way, right? In Final Fantasy 6, who's the biggest enemy you can think of in that entire game?
Shit, I don't know, the octopus dude.
That's like the smallest fucking enemy. What are you dumbass?
I can't, it's been years since I played 6, to be honest. Like the train, the ghost train.
You can suplex that train, so it's not that big. Like, but like the Kefka at the end, right? Like he like conveys a sense of size because there's 4 screens that you constantly go up. I don't know if you remember that.
Okay, yeah.
But with Chrono Trigger, you get the sense of scale because the enemies are just like, they could take up the entire top half of the screen. Like, they could be leaning over you, or you know, they could be taking up an entire like left side of the screen. They're just massive bosses, and so much fun to take them on.
Okay, cool.
You might know the directors actually. Like, there's one guy. Oh, who is it? He directed like Final Fantasy 6, 7, 8, and 10.
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Yoshinori Kitase, I think his name is. I might not be pronouncing that right, but he was one of the directors. Now there's 3 directors. The other 2, one of them was working on Parasite Eve, and like the gameplay and that's pretty fun, so you can kind of feel that. And then there's another guy. I can't remember his name, but he was a big battle designer on the older Final Fantasies.
As far as I know, like anything I've read about Chrono Trigger is that like it was like an all-star team that made it. Like the art was done by the guy who does Dragon Ball Z or something like that. Like,
Dragon Quest and Dragon Ball Z.
Okay,
that was
cool,
his thing. Like, and actually another thing, and this is something that you love in particular as well, is the music in it is phenomenal. Have you ever heard any of the theme songs?
I've heard occasional things. Yeah.
It's amazing. Actually, interesting little side fact. Actually, now, the guy who did the music of it, what was his name? I have it written down here somewhere. It's Yasunori Mitsuda. I'm really good at
this podcast
Japanese.
Is going to be like Irish lads trying to pronounce Japanese names.
Hironobu who? Yeah, his name was, I've lost it again, god damn it. His name was Yasunori Mitsuda, right? And he released a kind of companion album a couple of years. I think it was during the PlayStation re-release of the game.
Okay, yeah.
And it was what was he called? It acid jazz version of it. Have you ever heard of acid jazz?
Yeah, man,
like a combination of like funk, disco.
It's music that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I was listening to a bit of it earlier. It's a banger of an album. It's
cool,
absolutely kick ass. Like,
it's weird the way, this is sort of a tangent, but like these JRPGs that we're mentioning used to put such an emphasis into music. Like it's because I guess the graphics were limited to a certain extent in what they convey. Like they didn't have voice acting that they needed to get across an emotion or a trill or whatever through the score more than anything. So they invested a lot of time and did a lot, like some of the best scores are JRPG games.
They really are,
you know?
yeah. And actually, and it is kind of this era as well, because as they go along, I mean, now this is just a personal opinion on my part, but it hasn't been as emblematic or iconic as it was back in those days. Yeah. Final Fantasy 13, like, actually, no, to be fair,
I love the battle team.
Yeah, I will say, actually, Final Fantasy 13 has some good music, but Lightning Returns. That's
the weird thing about Final Fantasy as a series is like almost every game has excellent music. It's almost like it's very hard to rank them.
Yeah,
as well,
it really, really is. Like, although I would say 9's the best. But listen, we won't go. Okay. That'll be another video for another time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you say that. There's one. The main theme of Chrono Trigger is it's actually one of the characters' themes. There's this old knight, right? You know the whole time travel mechanic in the game?
I'm aware of that.
Yeah. So they go back in time, forward in time, yada yada yada. One of the main characters, he is a knight who is turned into a frog, and his name.
Oh, I was wondering when you were going to mention the frog.
Yeah, you know his name is Frog, which is emblematic of his condition, which is very clever now if you think about it. There's also another character who's a robot, and his name is Robo, which is very clever because they took away the T because robots can't drink tea.
That's exactly it. They save on memory space by not having that T on screen.
I'm telling you, like, but
crafty boys.
But the frog's theme is like the main theme of the entire game, and there's this great moment where you're looking for a sword during the game, right? The Mass Immune.
You always are.
You always are, isn't it? It's a JRPG staple. But when he gets it, and there's this great moment where it's a very fanboyish moment. But when he finally gets the sword, he needs to find the entrance to this dungeon or something. Oh wait, no, he doesn't know. It's just, I'm going to display my strength now, and he literally slices a mountain in half. And it is fucking awesome.
That's class.
It is badass. Like,
I almost wish you didn't tell me about that because
I'm sorry. Oh no,
because I'm sure that's so surprising when it happens as well. Like,
okay, yeah, I'm
going to ruin a shitload of things in games for you.
Spoilers, anyway. By the way. I won't ramble on about this too much longer. I will say my favorite character though is the robot. He's 100% the robot. So I remember when I said Final Fantasy VI has better characters. It does. Like, I feel like the sense of humor in Chrono Trigger is very light, despite the fact that they're trying to prevent an apocalypse. There is a lot of very light moments in it.
Well, they're always trying to prevent an apocalypse.
Yeah, I mean, or fight God or whatever.
Yeah.
It's all good. JRPGs, they're all about fighting God. But yeah, no, because it's very light. Like, there's not a big focus on like characters. Like, they don't delve very deep into like their psyche or anything like that. But Robo is like, I feel like he's an exception. There's a lot of nuance to him. I kind of feel like he was supposed to be a human character at one point, because I swear to God, there's a mechanic as one of your main characters. Her name is Luca. Her name is Luca, sorry. And she basically fixes him up in the future and brings him to life.
Okay. And
there's a really nice relationship between the two of them. You'd swear it was like some kind of romance, but it's kind of an impossible one. Like, it's not in any way underlined, and it's like, not, I guarantee you nobody who's ever played the game is like, what? No, that's not there at all. But if you look at it, I think it's kind of there, and it's kind of sweet. So like, it's, I think it's cool.
That's disgusting. He's made of metal and plastic and shit, man. She's a human. Jesus Christ. What sort of fucked up degenerate game are you recommending to me?
But actually, another little. I'm sorry, I keep going on.
Keep going, man. Let's go.
One of the people who did the art design, he said that Ridley Scott's Alien was a big influence on how he designed the lighting in the game. There's a little fun fact for you.
What? Like, that game couldn't look anything less like Alien.
You haven't seen things.
Okay. I'll have to complete the game 100% before I
absolutely
have an opinion.
That's another thing, that there's like 13 endings to that game.
Holy shit, like, come on games.
Yeah,
come on, Japan.
It was also the first game like that Square Enix had the New Game Plus for. Like,
oh wow, cool.
Yeah, like I think the first one they did after that was I don't know, 12 or 13 or something like that.
Well, they could have had some like random
They might have,
yeah.
But like, because apparently a lot of people who were testing it was like, I'd really like to try it again and see what other like effects that my actions in the past will have in the future. People really wanted to play it again. So yeah, it was good. Anyway,
so lots of replayability.
Yeah, I haven't played it since the first time I played it again, but that's just because I've got a huge backlog. But yeah, I guess that's kind of my recommendation. So
okay, that's cool.
Beat that, I guess.
Okay. Well, you chose like a stone cold classic JRPG, constantly tops like the rankings. I'm going to choose a game that was commercially and critically a failure.
Oh, I can't wait! This is gonna be great.
but saying that in the years since it was released, it was released in 2015, so not that long ago. It's sort of gained a little bit of a cult following, and people are reassessing it a bit.
Okay.
So the game I think you should play is Mad Max.
Okay, interesting one. All right, yeah. This is the sandiest sandbox there has ever been.
Yeah. Like miles of sand. That's an interesting first point to say is the game is beautiful. Like it looks amazing. Even like with games nowadays, things move so fast and games can very easily look dated very quickly. For a 3-year-old game, the art design and graphics are amazing. They managed to make like a sandy wasteland look incredible. So they have lots of variation with like there might be rusted ships and
Rusted
like,
shits?
Sorry. Calcium deficiency or iron or something.
The Over 18s podcast begins now.
So like
Trigger's over.
rusted ships and volcanoes and buildings and like the classic sort of Mad Max architecture and stuff like that.
But can I ask you one thing though? Isn't the story in that game absolutely terrible?
I was going to get to the negative points, but the story. Okay, one thing I do love about the story is it's almost non-existent. Okay, it's basically an excuse for you to collect things and kill people. But
Isn't everything?
But the main motivation for your character throughout the whole game is to get a better car, to make his car and to upgrade it, and that's the best thing about the game. Because like, what do we want Mad Max to be, or Max the character to be? We don't want him to be like a savior. We want him to just be a guy who happens to be there, who wants his car back, but gets involved in all this other shit.
Do you know, it's funny when you put it that way. Actually, it's kind of bang on.
No, like, it's perfect. I don't want him to be like, oh, let's save the orphans. I'm like, okay, come along, orphans.
Yeah,
you know,
forget the orphans. Get rid of them.
So this was developed by Avalanche Studios, who did the Just Cause games, and you can sort of get that vibe from it. It's not quite as anarchic as those games, like where you're just like jumping out of planes and exploding everything, but it does have that sort of freewheeling spirit. Like one of the
freewheeling.
Oh my god, that wasn't even intentional.
Get out! You're mad. Okay, let's not. Okay.
Let's
push it to the max. Sorry, I can't stop.
2 beers, Steve. Can I just say that? 2 beers. What was I even talking about?
I don't know. It doesn't have the same freewheeling style. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the best parts of the game is obviously the driving. Driving around the open world is amazing. You get great weapons. But there's also lots of little side missions that you can do that involve driving. Like there's races and time trials, and they're great and all. But the best thing is convoys. Convoys are trucks that are going along randomly in the open world with guardian cars around them, and you engage them and fight them, which is basically Mad Max 2 and Mad Max Fury Road, but in little pocket-sized variations around the map as side missions, and they are so much fun.
That sounds kind of badass, I'm not gonna lie.
No, it's amazing, like, and it's sort of organic, like it happens in the map. Like you obviously have like a map marker, and one of the biggest flaws with the games is that, and it's like the Ubisoft games, it's like a load of side missions and collectibles and checklists. Like it can be a drag after a while. But convoys were one of the most engaging and one of my favorite parts of the whole game, to be honest. And the fact that it happened organically around the map as well, that makes it seem less contrived and less like an obvious allusion to the older films. Saying that, if you're a fan of Mad Max in general, it doesn't directly follow any storyline from the previous films, but it has elements of everything. So it has, Mad Max 2 sort of gritty, sandy wasteland, and tree or Thunderdome sort of huge operatic 80s excess thing, and also Fury Road's like amazing aesthetic with like flares and colors and shit like that. It's a really beautiful game.
Does Tina Turner show up in the...
Unfortunately not. They couldn't get it's Tanya Turnhead who turns up instead.
Damn you, Spielbergo, you strike again. That sounds... I'm not gonna lie, like, I mean, I remember I was considering getting Mad Max when it came out, but when it came out, the principal thing that I heard was that it was generic. But
it's a hard thing to argue against in a way. Like a lot of things drag the game down. So first third of the game, you're going out to outposts, I should say, and reclaiming them. You're collecting items and upgrading your car. You're doing side missions. Side missions are varied. Like you can save people and give them water, or you can do the convoy missions. Then you start to get 2/3 or near the half end of the game, and you're sort of like, there's no variation. I've been doing all these missions again. Like it sort of blows its load in that first third to a certain extent. And the main thing that keeps you driving on through the rest of the game is seeing more beautiful environments and upgrading your car, which is unfortunate.
Driving you on?
Oh my god.
No, that wasn't the point I was going to make there. Sorry.
You bastard.
The thing that you've hit on that has really actually piqued my interest here is the convoys. Can you tell me like how do you attack them? Like, is it literally, do you ever get out of your car when you're attacking them, or like do you jump on your car, jump onto the convoys, or how does it work?
I can't remember now actually. No, I think most of the vehicular combat comes from using items. So you have a companion who will be on the back of your car and he can use different attacking items. But
so you're attacking from your car.
From your car. But I have to say that is a good decision overall, because the vehicle combat is very fluid. Like you're always, you have a reticule that you can attack with, and it never feels awkward or anything. It's definitely the best part of the game. The hand-to-hand combat is okay. It's basically a carbon copy of the Batman Arkham
I heard
games.
that, yeah.
So
which isn't a bad thing.
No,
Not a bad thing.
It's simple and
It's functional.
It's functional. It's visceral, but it doesn't have a lot of depth.
Yeah.
But an interesting thing is there's really not a huge reliance on guns throughout the game. You have your shotgun, which is iconic for Mad Max, but you don't get a lot of ammo, and you have to craft other items. There's more of a focus on upgrading your melee and hand-to-hand combats or stuff.
Okay, cool.
Which is really great. Like it's so easy for these sort of games, especially tie-ins to movies, to become like generic third-person cover-based shooter games.
Right.
And this really goes in a different direction, and I think it should be applauded for that. Even it has a lot of shortcomings as well.
I'm going to ask you about another shortcoming that I heard about, but I don't know about.
Okay.
When this was being promoted, a big thing was like the sandstorms. Like, oh yeah, they happen in real time. Yeah. But when I saw reviews coming out, a lot of people were saying like, what exactly are you supposed to do during the sands? Like, are they just like a agent of chaos there to fuck with you, or like, because apparently you can't really navigate them, and the only thing you can really do is wait them out. So
I actually love the sandstorms, but I know I'm in the minority in saying
right.
that.
Okay.
For two reasons. One, they are aesthetically amazing. Like, it's just completely covering your whole. It doesn't matter where you are on the map.
It's like, covering your whole.
Oh my god! Can I not say like every car innuendos and ass innuendos are getting like out the wazoo here?
Okay, we've got a new title for this playlist.
No, they look amazing. Everything is like got this orange glow, and it's obviously been inspired by the Fury Road. Actually, something I should note is George Miller, the director of every Mad Max film, was actually a consultant on the game.
Also, Happy Feet and Happy Feet 2, just to get
yeah. No,
because
so many allusions to Happy Feet 2. So many references.
The last boss is like the penguin who dances.
It's basically like a Dance Dance Revolution game at the end. Yeah.
I'd love that.
But sandstorms, they're an interesting. They are annoying, like especially if you're in the middle of taking out an outpost and a sandstorm comes, or you're trying to get somewhere and you have to wait it out. That is annoying. But there is certain gameplay things you can do during them that make it fun. Like a lot of loot and stuff gets blown around and you can collect it during sandstorms. So they are... I can see why they're annoying, but I like them as a gameplay. And they're sort of random as well, so it spices up a little bit, you know?
Ooh, spicy. Quick question for you. No, two questions for you, actually. First of all... It's like the entire thing is just a big desert, and I'm assuming there's little towns there. Are any of them kind of like standouts, like well designed, or are they just basically just kind of
they're
scrappy towns?
Aesthetically different, but they're the same in other ways. You can upgrade them. So generally, when you get to a new area, they're not like a town. They're more like a little outpost. Like one could be a ship, or one could be an old factory, or something like that where people live. And when you get there, you can upgrade them, so you need resources, and that's sort of the worst part of the game, is the grind to get resources. You have to keep getting more scrap and more stuff like that, and that means, I can upgrade this town with like a water tower, and I can get more, replenish my water there or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But none of them, they're sort of carbon, like they each have a figurehead at them. And they're like a voiced character or whatever, and they can be like, they're the general Mad Max thing of lunatics and people who are obsessed with cults or cars in general. But No, they have personality is the thing I'd say at least.
Did this come out at the same time as your? It was before or was it after?
Oh, it was a bit after actually, because a lot of reviews.
Smart actually that.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, and you can see it in the game. It has that aesthetic. Definitely, like if you're a fan of the look of that film, I would definitely recommend this. But a lot of reviewers unfavorably compared it to Fury Road in terms of its story, because the story is crap in Mad Max. Like it's in the game, I mean, like it's not you want to get your car, and Mad Max goes through he's a gruff anti-hero archetype basically. And every other character is pretty broadly drawn. It's the atmosphere in the world you're going for, rather than like it isn't The Last of Us. That's what I'll say.
Right, okay, yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question, if that's okay.
Yeah, one last one.
What's your favorite moment in Mad Max? Either like scripted or a moment that happened to you in it. And I want you to ask me the same question about Chrono Trigger, because I only thought about saying that there now. I've got one all lined up.
Yeah, you knew what this was.
You do you, man.
You had that one tucked in your fanny pack. Okay, it's going to repeat what I said earlier, but the convoy missions. Just
it sounds it. Like, that's the thing that sold me on it from what... I mean... I'll say sold. Like, I'm probably not going to go out and buy Mad Max, but I know you have it, so I might borrow it off you. I'll say that.
Yeah,
much.
no, I'll fucking give it to you. But they're amazing, the convoy missions, and they're obviously a very direct reference to the films. One thing, they could have taken it a little further and have like a huge extended one. That would have been amazing. One that goes like across the entire map and has multiple stages. But for what they are, they're really cool, and I love how organic they are in the world. So what's your favorite moment? So Steve, I just thought of this idea. What's your favorite moment from Chrono Trigger?
That's a really interesting question, Michael. My favorite moment, now there's a lot of great moments in it, but there's one moment that I really love,
where the frog cuts the mountain in half.
Oh, that's a really good scene.
How can you top that? Like?
No, actually, one of my favorite moments, and it's great because it was after a night out, and Colin, who I mentioned earlier that we were having a conversation, he crashed on my couch, and we just ended up like me playing this game and he was watching me. And there's a moment where your main character is on trial for something he hasn't done. And
aren't they always?
Aren't they always, exactly. But like you have to basically convince the jury that you're not guilty. And it's kind of like, do you know the Final Fantasy VI opera scene where you have to say the right lyrics?
Oh yeah, cool.
It's a little bit like that, but it's a really funny scene, and it's just like it kind of sums up like the quirky sense of humor of it absolutely perfectly. Like, you know, basically the idea is that you kidnap this princess, but in actual fact the princess is a friend of yours, and they've mistaken her for her great grandmother. And this starts a whole grandfather paradox. So basically she almost doesn't get born until like they go out and actually find the person she loves.
Wait a minute, do you have to fuck your grandmother in this game?
Don't you always? But no, that's my favorite bit, because it's just like I mean, there's also a lot of great boss battles, but that's the bit that always sticks out in my memory.
It's cool. I wish JRPGs and stuff would do more wacky scenes like that. Like even Cloud dressing up to go to Don Corneo's mansion.
That is one of the best
stuff
scenes
like that. You know, just random shit.
You just know the remake is going to like tame that down, or maybe amp it up 1,000,000%, so that like he has to.
Well, it's tricky. It's 2018. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of very dodgy things to do there. So I mean, yeah.
Anyway,
we won't go into the dodgy stuff that 7 does. We'll just leave it there. We go into what we think.
Okay, what do we think what are we going to recommend that people play out of these two games? I think the answer is pretty obvious in this one. Like, it's going to be Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, like I'm not going to lie. Like, I mean, you put forward a good argument, but the thing is, like, I mean, the one thing I will say is most people probably will have played Chrono Trigger.
Exactly. I'm in a minority in this.
Yeah, and I think I should probably focus more on games that people likely haven't played, or be like whatever. So like I'm kind of like, you know, give Mad Max another chance, but.
If you gotta play, if you haven't played either and you gotta play one,
play Chrono Trigger.
Exactly.
Chrono Trigger is da bomb, and I'm so sorry for saying that.
On that really lame note, we'll end this one.
I actually just went back in time to the 90s where that was a cool thing to say.
Chrono Trigger.